In the quiet suburbs of Dallas, Texas, Hazel Brooks and Lucas Brooks seemed like the perfect couple. Hazel, a vibrant woman in her late 20s, had a deep love for dancing. It was something she had always enjoyed, but until recently she had never thought of sharing her talent with the world. That changed when she downloaded TikTok. What started as a simple way to pass the time quickly turned into a passion. With every video she posted, she felt a spark of excitement, even though she only had a handful of followers in the beginning. Lucas, her loving husband, was originally from Nigeria. He had been living in the United States for a few years and worked for a tech company. He was a reserved, hard-working man who preferred a quiet life. From the start, he supported Hazel's dreams, always encouraging her to do what made her happy. He enjoyed watching her dance around their living room, laughing as she tried to perfect her moves before recording. To him, her happiness meant everything. March 2022 marked Hazel's birthday, and Lucas wanted to do something special. He had noticed how much she loved making TikTok videos, but her phone's camera wasn't the best. So, he bought her the latest high-end smartphone, thinking it would help her improve her content. When Hazel unwrapped the gift, her eyes lit up with excitement. "Oh my God, Lucas. This is amazing," she exclaimed, throwing her arms around him. Lucas smiled, pleased with her reaction. "I know how much you love making your videos. Now you can film in better quality," he said warmly. Hazel was beyond thrilled. With her new phone, she started posting more often, experimenting with different dance routines, and engaging more with her growing audience. She was still far from being an influencer, but every new like and comment fueled her motivation. Lucas, seeing her so happy, felt proud of his decision. As the months passed, Hazel's following began to grow. At first, it was just a few more likes here and there, but soon she started gaining real traction. People loved her energy, her moves, and her radiant smile. The comment section of her videos became more active, filled with encouragement, admiration, and, to Lucas's dismay, flirtation. At first, Lucas brushed it off. Of course, people were going to compliment her. She was beautiful and she had a natural charm. But as the comments became more direct, he couldn't ignore the nagging feeling growing inside him. "Damn, you're gorgeous. If I had a wife like this, I'd never let her out of my sight. You should DM me, beautiful." Lucas started checking her videos more often, reading the comments with a clenched jaw. He noticed some users commenting repeatedly, as if they were trying to get Hazel's attention. And what troubled him even more was that she sometimes replied. Nothing inappropriate, just a simple "thank you" or a smiling emoji. But to Lucas, it felt like the beginning of something dangerous. One evening, as Hazel was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her notifications, Lucas sat beside her. "You're getting a lot of attention lately," he said casually, though there was an edge to his voice. Hazel looked up and smiled. "Yeah, it's crazy, right? I never thought people would actually enjoy my dancing this much." Lucas hesitated before speaking again. "Some of the comments, they're a bit much, don't you think?" Hazel sighed, rolling her eyes. "Lucas, they're just random guys on the internet. It doesn't mean anything." "I know," he admitted, "but it still bothers me. I just don't like the way some of them talk to you." Hazel put her phone down and took his hand. "You have nothing to worry about. I love you. This is just fun for me, nothing more." Lucas nodded, but the uneasy feeling didn't go away. As much as he wanted to believe her, a small voice in his head kept whispering doubts. And deep down, Hazel knew that things were only going to get more complicated. By mid-2022, Lucas's patience had worn thin. What had once been a fun hobby for Hazel had now turned into something much bigger. She was spending more time on TikTok, filming, editing, replying to comments, and even going live to interact with her followers. Lucas watched as his wife's attention shifted from their quiet life to the glowing screen of her phone. At first, he tried to be understanding. He reminded himself that Hazel had always been passionate about dancing, and TikTok was just another way for her to express herself. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was changing. Even their dinners together felt different. Lucas would sit across from Hazel, watching as she scrolled through her phone between bites, smiling at messages from strangers. He tried to ignore it, but the resentment started creeping in. One evening in June, Lucas finally snapped. "Hazel, can you put your phone down for one meal?" he asked, his tone sharper than he intended. Hazel sighed but placed the phone face down on the table. "I was just checking comments. It's not a big deal." Lucas shook his head. It is a big deal. It's all you ever do now. You spend more time talking to strangers than to me. Hazel frowned. That's not fair. I'm just doing something I love. Why can't you support me like you used to? I did support you, Lucas shot back. I bought you that phone, remember? But I didn't sign up for this. It's like I don't even exist anymore. The argument ended with Hazel storming off to the bedroom and Lucas sitting alone at the table, his appetite gone. By August, the tension between them had reached its peak. The arguments had become more frequent, and Lucas was tired of feeling like a second choice in his marriage. One evening, as Hazel was setting up her phone to record a new video, Lucas walked in, his arms crossed. We need to talk. Hazel glanced at him but continued adjusting the lighting. Can it wait? I'm about to record. No, Lucas said firmly. It can't. Hazel sighed and put her phone down. What is it now? Lucas took a deep breath. I can't do this anymore, Hazel. This obsession. You spend more time on TikTok than with me. I don't even know who you are anymore. Hazel's eyes narrowed. That's ridiculous. Just because I have something I enjoy doesn't mean I don't care about you. Lucas shook his head. You don't get it. You're choosing this over our marriage. Hazel crossed her arms. That's not true. Then prove it, Lucas said. Stop posting. Hazel stared at him, stunned. What? Stop posting. If our marriage means anything to you, stop making these videos, Lucas repeated, his voice low but firm. Hazel's hands clenched into fists. You're asking me to give up something that makes me happy. That's not love, Lucas. That's control. Lucas's expression darkened. No, it's asking for respect. I'm your husband, Hazel. And I'm telling you this is ruining us. Hazel felt anger boiling inside her. You don't get to decide what I do with my life. Lucas's voice turned cold. Then maybe we shouldn't be together. The words hung in the air like a heavy storm cloud. Hazel's heart pounded in her chest. She looked at the man she had once loved so deeply and realized they were standing on opposite sides of a breaking bridge. Without another word, she turned and walked to their bedroom, grabbing a suitcase. Lucas didn't stop her. Within an hour, she was on the road, driving to her parents' house in Houston, leaving behind the life they had built together. The distance between them grew quickly. Lucas moved to a different town for a new job, burying himself in work to avoid thinking about Hazel. Meanwhile, Hazel found comfort in a place she hadn't expected: her TikTok messages. One name stood out among the dozens of comments and direct messages: Tyrone Miller. He had been commenting on her videos for months. At first, Hazel had barely noticed him among the flood of messages, but after she left Lucas, she started paying more attention. Tyrone was older, in his 30s, and had a confidence that was both intriguing and comforting. Unlike Lucas, he never questioned her passion. In fact, he encouraged it. Their conversations started off innocent, just casual chats about dancing, TikTok, and life. But soon the messages turned more personal. Tyrone had a way of making Hazel feel seen, something she hadn't felt with Lucas in a long time. By late August, Hazel and Tyrone had met in person. One meeting turned into 2, then 3. Before she knew it, she was tangled in something she couldn't easily walk away from. With Tyrone, she felt alive. The excitement, the attention, it was intoxicating. She convinced herself that Lucas had pushed her into this and that things wouldn't have turned out this way if he had just supported her. But deep down she knew the truth. She had crossed a line. And there was no turning back. By September 2022, Lucas had officially moved to a new city for his job. The fresh start was supposed to help him clear his mind and focus on his career, but nothing felt right. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't escape the memories of Hazel, the laughter they once shared, the late-night talks, the way she used to dance around their living room just for him. He still loved her. Despite everything, despite the fights, despite her refusal to quit TikTok, he couldn't shake the feeling that they could fix things. Maybe the distance was just a test, a painful but necessary pause before they found their way back to each other. Lucas reached out to Hazel often. At first, she responded with short, polite messages. I'm doing okay. Hope you're settling in. Take care. But over time, the replies grew less frequent. Days would pass before she even acknowledged his texts. When he tried to call, she either ignored it or sent a quick excuse. Lucas told himself she was just busy. Maybe she needed time just like he did. What he didn't know was that Hazel wasn't busy, she was with Tyrone. With Lucas. She wanted to be with Tyrone, fully, completely, without the weight of her past holding her back. But there was one problem. Lucas. Divorce seemed like the obvious answer, but Hazel didn't want a drawn-out legal process. She wanted a clean break, something final. Something that wouldn't leave room for Lucas to fight for her or try to win her back. That's when the idea came to her. She would lure Lucas back, make him think they had a chance, that she wanted to fix things. And when he least expected it, she'd make sure he was gone for good. She reached out to him one evening, sending a message that was carefully crafted to pull at his heartstrings. Hazel, I've been thinking a lot about us. About everything. I don't want to throw it all away. Can we talk? Lucas stared at the message for a long time before responding. His heart raced. After months of distance, after so many unanswered calls, was she finally coming back to him? Lucas, of course. I love that. I still love you, Hazel. Her reply came quickly. Hazel, I love you too. Come home. Let's work this out. Lucas didn't hesitate. He packed his bags, his heart full of hope. Little did he know he was walking into a trap. On January 14, 2023, Lucas made the decision that would change everything. Hazel's words had played over and over in his head for days. I love you too. Come home. Let's work this out. Maybe Hazel had finally realized what they had was worth saving. The drive back felt longer than ever. His thoughts bounced between excitement and fear. What if she really meant it? What if this was their chance to start fresh? By the time he pulled up to their house at 6 p.m., his hands were slick with sweat. He took a deep breath, steadied himself, and stepped out of the car. The house was dimly lit, but Hazel's car was parked outside. She was home. Lucas reached for the door handle. He hesitated for just a second before pushing it open. The moment he stepped inside, everything fell apart. Hazel wasn't waiting for him with open arms. She wasn't sitting on the couch, ready to talk things through. Instead, she was in the bedroom, with him. Tyrone. Hazel was wrapped in Tyrone's arms, their bodies entangled in a moment so intimate that it made Lucas's stomach turn. For a split second, no one moved. Then Hazel gasped. Lucas, but he wasn't listening. His world had just shattered into a million pieces. The betrayal burned deep, cutting him in ways he hadn't thought possible. Lucas felt his chest tighten, his vision blurring with fury and heartbreak. So this was your plan? You lied to me. You made me believe. Before he could finish, Tyrone stepped forward, his expression darkening. You need to leave. Lucas let out a bitter laugh. This is my house. Tyrone's jaw tightened. Not anymore. Hazel's eyes darted between the two men, her face a mixture of guilt and panic. Lucas shook his head, his voice shaking with emotion. I gave you everything, Hazel. I believed in you. I trusted you. His gaze flickered to Tyrone. And him? This is what you chose. Hazel opened her mouth to speak, but Tyrone cut her off. She doesn't owe you anything. That was the final straw. Lucas lunged forward, shoving Tyrone back. The sudden burst of anger ignited something even darker. Tyrone reacted immediately, swinging a fist straight into Lucas's jaw. The force sent him stumbling back, but he didn't fall. He wasn't going to back down. Lucas fought back. The room erupted into chaos. Fists flew, grunts and curses filled the air, and the furniture rattled as the two men clashed. Hazel screamed for them to stop, but neither of them listened. The rage had taken over. Tyrone landed a brutal punch to Lucas's ribs, making him gasp for air, but Lucas retaliated, slamming his fist into Tyrone's face. Blood spattered onto the floor. For a moment, it looked like Lucas might win until Hazel made her choice. She grabbed a heavy glass vase from the nightstand and brought it crashing onto Lucas's head. Lucas staggered, his vision swimming, his knees buckling beneath him. Tyrone took the opportunity to grab him by the shirt, pulling him up just to throw him back down with a force that made the entire room tremble. They didn't stop. Hazel and Tyrone kept hitting him over and over until Lucas lay still. Until the rise and fall of his chest stopped completely. The man who had once loved Hazel more than anything, the man who had trusted her enough to come back, was gone. The morning of January 15, 2023, was supposed to be just another Sunday for Shenanso Brooks. But something felt off. His older brother Lucas had promised to call once he got back home. Lucas always kept his word. When his phone remained silent all night, Shenanso grew uneasy. By sunrise, the uneasiness had turned into full-blown panic. Something wasn't right. Trusting his instincts, Shinonso got into his car and drove straight to Hazel's house. The closer he got, the heavier his chest felt. He tried calling Lucas again, no answer. As he pulled up to the driveway, his breath caught in his throat. What he saw made his stomach turn. Through the dim morning light, Shinonso spotted 3 figures struggling to carry something heavy. His eyes adjusted and his blood ran cold. It was Lucas. Hazel, Tyrone, and another man, someone from Hazel's family, were moving quickly, their faces tense with urgency. Their plan was clear. They were going to dispose of the body before anyone noticed. Shinonso's hands clenched into fists. His heart pounded. For a split second he wanted to run straight at them to make them pay for what they had done. But he knew better. He needed to be smart. He needed to get help. His fingers trembled as he reached for his phone. 911, what's your emergency? They killed him. My brother. They're trying to get rid of his body. You need to send someone. Now. Sir, where are you located? He rattled off the address, his eyes never leaving the scene before him. Hazel and Tyrone had managed to get Lucas's body into the trunk. They were about to drive away. Hurry, Shinonso urged. Units are on the way. Stay on the line. Just as Hazel was about to get into the driver's seat, sirens pierced the air. The tires screeched as the police cars came to a stop, blocking their escape. Hands in the air, an officer shouted. For a moment no one moved. Then, realizing there was no way out, Hazel slowly raised her hands. Tyrone hesitated before doing the same. The third accomplice followed, his face pale with fear. Shinonso stood frozen, watching as the officers rushed in, weapons drawn. He felt numb. The only thing that mattered was Lucas. But Lucas was gone. The police quickly took control of the scene, placing Hazel, Tyrone, and the accomplice in handcuffs. You have the right to remain silent? Shinonso barely heard the rest. His eyes were locked on the car. An officer opened the trunk and there he was, Lucas. Lifeless. Cold. Shinonso's knees buckled. A choked sob escaped his lips. His brother was never coming back. The police wasted no time securing the area. They began piecing together what had happened, questioning the suspects, searching the house and collecting evidence. As the morning sun rose higher, the truth unraveled. The affair. The lies. The plan to lure Lucas back home. And finally, the brutal way it all ended. As Hazel was led toward a police car, her eyes met Shinonso's for just a second. There was no remorse. Just fear. And for the first time, Shinonso felt no pity. She had made her choice. Now she would face the consequences. The days following Lucas's murder were filled with grief, shock, and the relentless pursuit of justice. The evidence against Hazel and Tyrone was overwhelming. Detectives uncovered text messages between the two, laying out their twisted plan in black and white. Hazel had lured Lucas back under false pretenses, knowing full well that he would never leave that house alive. Tyrone had played his part, not only as her lover but as an active participant in the brutal killing. Shinonso Brooks became the key witness. His testimony, combined with the text messages, security footage from nearby streets and forensic evidence, left no doubt in the jury's mind. This was premeditated murder. By early March 2023, Hazel and Tyrone were both formally charged with first-degree murder. Hazel's family member, who had helped move Lucas's body, was charged with being an accessory after the fact. The courtroom was tense when the trial began. Reporters filled the seats, the public eager to hear how such a tragic and senseless crime had unfolded. Lucas's family sat in the front row, his mother weeping quietly as the prosecution laid out the gruesome details. The defense tried to argue that the murder was not planned, claiming it was a crime of passion. But the messages between Hazel and Tyrone told a different story. They had discussed getting rid of Lucas long before he returned home. When Shinonso took the stand, his voice was strong despite the pain in his eyes. He described what he had witnessed that morning, the horror of seeing his brother's lifeless body being dragged like trash. The verdict came swiftly. Hazel was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge called her actions a cold and calculated betrayal of trust. Tyrone, who had been the one to strike the fatal blow, received the death penalty. His lack of remorse, combined with his history of violent behavior, sealed his fate. As for Hazel's family member, they were sentenced to 15 years for their role in attempting to cover up the crime. Lucas's family felt some relief knowing that justice had been served, but the pain of losing him would never fade. His mother struggled to accept that her son had died at the hands of the woman he had loved. His father, a quiet man, never spoke much after the trial. Shinonso, now carrying the weight of his brother's memory, became determined to ensure Lucas was not forgotten. He started a foundation in Lucas's name, advocating for victims of domestic violence and betrayal. But the scars of that night remained. The community, once peaceful, was no more the same. As this story comes to a close, one cannot help but wonder, how did it come to this? It all began with love, or at least what seemed like love. But temptation, deceit, and the hunger for something more had turned a once happy marriage into a nightmare. Hazel and Lucas had once built a life together, yet in the end, betrayal tore it all apart. Lucas's only mistake was trusting the woman he loved. And for Hazel, her pursuit of passion and excitement led her down a dark path, one that ended in prison walls and regret. It is a cautionary tale of how easily one wrong decision can spiral into tragedy. A reminder that betrayal comes with a price. And that, in the end, justice always finds its way. Some wounds never heal. Some losses are permanent. And some stories serve as warnings for those who dare to play with fire.